Poilievre passes the test, while others wonder, what's next for the Conservative Party? This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Deeper than the headlines.
The answers you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
A ringing endorsement. If there were any doubts that Conservative Party members had any doubts about the leadership of Pierre Poilievre, they were put to bed over the weekend at the party's convention in Calgary. Poilievre sailed through his leadership review, winning the support of 87.4% of the delegates. During his speech just prior to the vote, Poilievre suggested the Conservatives have won the debate, even though the party lost the last election.
We won the debate in the last election on every single one of the big issues. On carbon taxes, inflation, housing, resources, crime, drugs, and soon we will be proven right once again on the wasteful and insane liberal gun grab. It's funny to watch the liberal rhetoric. First they said conservatives have no policies. It's just slogans. Then they said conservative policies are very scary. And then they said, we agree with all the conservative policies. The best part of being conservatives is that eventually everyone admits that we were right all along.
Poilievre tried to convey a message of hope to the party faithful, especially younger voters, and those thinking about voting for independence.
We can simply attack people who feel this way, or we can ask them why. Why in Alberta and Quebec? Why, particularly among young people in those provinces, have so many lost hope in Confederation? Well, here's a few hints. For the last 10 years, Ottawa has told our young people that our history is filled with shame and horror, that we are a post-national country with no core identity, and that our youth will never own homes. But other than that, they should feel great about being united in Canada. All the while, the federal government stomps on Alberta's energy sector and Quebec's jurisdiction. Now, our message to those youth and to all of the people in Alberta and Quebec who are losing hope in our country: you will again have a country that respects your autonomy, is proud of your industries, unites us around our common identity and history, a country that will afford you the hopeful future that you have earned.
Also whipping up party supporters was the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, given this convention was happening in her home province. And despite the kind words she has had recently for Prime Minister Mark Carney, she used her speech to underline how Alberta feels after 10 years of Trudeau.
Because for 10 years, we saw a prime minister that did everything he could to devastate the West and drive our investment and jobs out while implementing radical activist policies that ramped up disorder and chaos. And it got worse over time when we saw the formation of a federal left-wing activist coalition government in Ottawa, led by then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his friend, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, that were doing all they possibly could to choke off and ultimately destroy our province's energy and agriculture sectors. They also led an attack on provincial jurisdiction, energy, health, education, childcare, you name it, they wanted control over it. They placed a production cap on our nation's most valuable strategic asset, the Alberta oil sands, and along with it, an effective moratorium on the pipelines and oil tankers needed to take that oil to markets around the world. They put a Greenpeace activist, Stephen Guilbeault, thankfully no longer at the cabinet table, in charge of this assault on Canada's economy. And that is where the real damage to Canada was done by Justin Trudeau and his allies.
But now Justin Trudeau is gone. And while Pierre Poilievre is firmly in command of the Conservative Party for now, journalist Nick Taylor-Vasey told CPAC this weekend, the Conservatives still have to face the fact they are in opposition and the Liberals are not.
This room, as they go and vote now, so they face this uncomfortable truth. Poilievre made a joke a little bit on stage about how they've won all the policy debates. It was sort of like eventually everyone comes around. But guess what? The Liberals won the election. And Conservatives in that war room last year were frustrated. They would come over, talk to a journalist and say, Liberals are so good at winning. All they care about is winning. And so you can win all the policy debates you want, but this undertone throughout this weekend has been, look how well we performed in the election. Sandra Cobain talked about winning this Greater Toronto Area riding, a tight race. Absolutely. Conservatives won in uncommon places, but they didn't win the election.
And Stephanie Levitz of the Globe and Mail wondered, what's next for the Conservative caucus? And wondered whether Poilievre is really as safe as it seems.
You can almost see there's two different ways to parse that. You could have a member of parliament looking at that number and being like, well, I guess nothing really is going to change. I mean, I guess we're just going to keep on keeping on because everyone supports them to the degree that they do. And so, you know what? I'm out of here. Like, I don't want that. Or conversely, it's, okay, you know what? People are really behind him. There's maybe still some momentum here. Maybe there's some juice. You know what? I think I'll stick it out. It could go either way. But that's going to be up to individual MPs. And I do think caucus, at least based on my conversations and probably JD's, is keenly aware of that right now. They're keenly aware that they hold a great deal of power at the moment, too. They still have the Reform Act. They could still get rid of Mr. Poilievre if it, comes to be that none of this change of tone or pivot or whatever we want to call it. Caucus can flex, and maybe that's another way to keep people in the fold.
With the Poilievre leadership drama largely in the rearview mirror for now, Conservative politicians will turn to celebrating another party leader. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper will have his official portrait unveiled this week in Ottawa. Time to coincide with Mr. Harper first leading the Conservatives to victory in the 2006 election, 20 years ago this week. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Mayors of some cities across Canada, hard hit by the recent wave of attempted extortions, shooting, and arson aimed at South Asian business owners, are headed to Ottawa. They want more help dealing with the issue. They want it to be declared a national emergency. The Mayor of Brampton, Ontario joins us now, Patrick Brown. Thanks for taking the time, Mr. Mayor. Good to hear from you.
My pleasure. Great to be on the show.
For people who might not be familiar with this issue, what's been happening?
Well, over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen a rise in transnational crime where we see South Asian families and businesses being targeted by criminality outside of our country, where homes will be shot up if they don't pay an extortion. And it's dangerous, it's horrifying, and it has, communities, whether it's Winnipeg, Edmonton, the Lower Mainland of British Columbia, here in the GTA where I am, it has people on edge. And, we've been too slow to respond in Canada to the severity of this challenge.
What is known about who is responsible?
Well, initially, the most well-known criminal organization was the Bishnoi gang, but there are a lot of copycats. When they realize they can get away with it and force families and businesses to pay large sums of money, it gets replicated. Like any form of crime, if organized crime feels that it's working, they drive a Brinks truck through that loophole. And right now, law enforcement in Canada is largely in silos in how we respond to this. And so, unfortunately, we have been slow at the mark to respond and apprehend those responsible.
Tell us a little bit more about this Bishnoi gang. What's known about this Bishnoi gang?
Well, the Bishnoi gang is a criminal entity out of India, where their leader is actually in jail, but continues to conduct a large criminal organization. They have 700 shooters worldwide. The number of mayors in the country, the Premier of Alberta, the Premier of British Columbia, we all advocated for them to be declared a terrorist entity so that we could have additional law enforcement tools to deal with them. The government did do that in the summer, so that's helpful in terms of dealing with Bishnoi. But just to give you a sense of the number, we've had in Brampton, in Peel Region, 41 Bishnoi extortion incidents over the last year. And so they are active in Canada because they feel they can get away with it.
Okay. The declaration of being a terrorist entity, how does that change things?
Well, it gives the police additional tools in terms of the right to search. It helps their investigations. If someone's, just like years ago, if you were walking around with a Hells Angels vest, there was additional tools that came with law enforcement to investigate those individuals. Well, we now have the same tools for Bishnoi in Canada. And so if someone's driving a car that says Bishnoi Gang on the decal, which was, believe it or not, happening in broad daylight before this summer, police would have the ability to conduct searches in those instances. We literally had criminality in broad daylight because they knew that we weren't going to respond. So at least with Bishnoi, we've got more of a capacity to respond. I do believe what we need to do, though, is we really need to have FinTrack, CBSA, the RCMP, and local police working together quickly on the ground locally to respond to these incidents where they happen.
What is known about their presence in Canada? I mean, are we talking dozens of Bishnoi Gang members, hundreds, thousands? Just how severe is it?
Well, your guess would be as good as mine. What I would say, we've had hundreds of extortion attempts in Peel Region last year. 41 were from Bishnoi, so they are one component of this, but they would probably be one of the larger criminal organizations coming out of India, and obviously they have a presence in British Columbia, Alberta, particularly the GTA. But it's really what we struggle with is that the shooter, someone will be paid to shoot up a house, and it might be someone who's struggling with addictions or someone who just wants to make a quick buck. But the person paying them to do that shooting is the person we need to catch. And so police are effective in apprehending the lower level criminal who conducted that shooting. But when it comes to tracking where the payment came from and getting the person responsible, that's where there's really been a breakdown of our ability to extinguish this threat in Canada.
Okay. If you'll just hang on the line, I have just a few more quick questions for you. You want more action from the federal government. I want to know what specifically you think the federal government needs to do that's not being done, and what you know about authorities in India and how cooperative they are. Mayor Patrick Brown is with us. He's the mayor of Brampton, Ontario. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
We're talking about the extortion crisis in Canada with the mayor of Brampton, Ontario, Patrick Brown. Mayor Brown, what has the response been so far from the federal government, and what more needs to be done?
Well, the response by the federal government was to hold extortion summits in Surrey and in Brampton, and they announced about $1 million in funding for local police and $4 million for provincial police, which, as a percentage of what we spend is not overly significant, but every little bit of funding helps. What we really need is we have a local extortion task force, and what our chief of police has requested is to tear down the silos in which law enforcement in this country work. Right now, if we are tracing the finances of where the funding came from a shooting, we've got to call FinTrack. And FinTrack is based out of Ottawa. And by the time we get a response, the investigation is no longer effective because it takes too long. Similarly with CBSA. CBSA headquarters in Canada in Ottawa. And when we want to find out when someone gained entry to the country or any of the CBSA components of the investigation, that response is too slow. And so what our chief of police has requested is that we have everyone working together on the same task force so we can be agile and quick in investigating criminal investigations, time is critical. And so our ask is we need to get everyone on the same page, working on the ground locally where these extortions are happening. And this should be the approach, whether it's in Vancouver and Surrey, Edmonton, in Brampton. We just need to be quicker and more nimble on the ground with law enforcement working collaboratively.
Okay. Bill C-14 in Parliament is at the committee stage right now. This is big anti-crime bill from the Carney government. How would that help? C-14.
So I think there's a few pieces of legislation that would be helpful in terms of investigative tools for the police and in terms of the searches they conduct. I think that is helpful. The bail reform legislation is helpful, all a step in the right direction. I don't think they specifically speak to extortions, which is a bit of a different, obviously complicated issue because it largely originates outside of our borders. But I do think the legislation that has been presented is going to very much be of assistance.
How cooperative would you say authorities in India have been in dealing with this issue here in this country? Have they been helpful?
Yeah, well, we don't get a lot of cooperation locally in the sense that would be the RCMP or the federal government seeking that collaboration. And so what I've been told from local police, as soon as it originates to an ask outside of our borders, it goes cold. And so that's sort of where the investigation ends. And that certainly damages our ability to be successful in apprehending the individuals responsible. And so I do think we need a much larger level of collaboration and help when it comes to the investigations that occur in India.
Okay. Just one more thing. This week, they're going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Stephen Harper's 2006 election. Mr. Harper will have his portrait unveiled. You were part of that government. You were elected in 2006 and 2 more times after that as part of Stephen Harper's team. What was that like, being part of the Harper government?
Well, I think he has a lot to be proud of as Prime Minister. I think he has a pretty impressive legacy, and I'm looking forward to attending that dinner on Wednesday night and seeing some colleagues I haven't seen for a long time. But no, I think he was. I think history will be very kind to Stephen Harper. I think he took on difficult challenges, particularly the 2008 global economic slowdown, and he helped Canada weather that chapter, I think, in a relatively strong position. And I would note he left office with a balanced budget, which is not something many prime ministers can say.
Thank you for your time today, sir. Really appreciate
My pleasure.
it. Yeah, bye-bye. That's the mayor of Brampton, Ontario, Patrick Brown. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio. Well, it's time for our Monday Newsday political panel. Matthew Dube is with us, Vice President, Proof Strategies, former NDP MP. Welcome back to you, Matthew Dube.
Hi, Rob.
Jordan Paquet is Vice President at Bluesky Strategy Group. Hi, Jordan. Good to hear
Rob,
from you.
how you doing? Good
Yeah, very good. Very good. All is good. All is good. Well, Jordan, let's start with you this week. What's your reaction to the vote that confirmed Pierre Poilievre's leadership of the Conservative Party?
Sure. No, look, I'm just getting back from Calgary yesterday. I think there was a lot of unity inside the room, and I think that was very much reflected in the vote. Sorry, I mean, it was a huge effort, obviously, on behalf of his team, running almost a mini campaign to get this done, and in the end, it paid off. 87.4% of the delegates were endorsing Pierre to continue as leader. I think that's a great number. I think that surprised some people who thought it might be or could be lower, or thought that there could be divisions within the party. So I think it's certainly very clear coming into the convention that it's Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party still right now, and will be for the foreseeable future.
And what did you think of his speech?
I thought his speech was quite good. I mean, it touched on some of the common elements in some of those conservative red meat issues to really throw that out to. But I do feel he adjusted somewhat in allowing some of the personal elements to come into it. And I think standing inside the room, that really captivated some of the audience. Certainly when he talked about his family, talking about hearing an autistic daughter speak for the first time, talking about kind of being away and the amount of work that goes into this. It was certainly well received by people in the room. There was a lot of emotion there, and I think that perhaps is some of that softening type of pivot that people have talked about, trying to take away some of the sharper edges and show Canadians something that they can relate to.
Okay. Well, Matthew, what's your reaction to the vote result confirming his leadership of the Conservative Party, 87.4%?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You'll recall, Rob, I think I've said 85 when pressed for a number with both you and in other spaces where I've been asked to comment. So if we're playing by the Price is Right rules, I'm feeling pretty good this morning about how that turned out.
Very good.
But listen, I don't think there was any doubt. Certainly, people who disliked the man wanted to imply that it might be at risk. But I think anyone who has even had half a conversation with anyone involved with the Conservative Party over the last number of weeks and months, while there had to be work done to get there, didn't think that he was in any kind of major threat. I suspect, as I mentioned last week, I believe, I'm guessing they're happy now that they can move on to what I imagine are more productive things, politically speaking.
Okay. What did you think of the speech, Matthew, if you saw any of it?
I did. Don't ask me why, and this is not a partisan thing. This is just more of a humanity thing, why I subjected myself to a 45-minute political speech on a Friday night in the Eastern time zone. It must have been like 10 o'clock. But look, all goodness aside, I thought it was okay. I'm glad that he got rid of the slogans, that you've heard that comment a few times. And I would definitely echo the comments about the humanity and the compassion that he showed, speaking about his personal experience, about his family. I think that's something that's incredibly important. And quite frankly, shouldn't be buried at the end of a speech like that. I think he needs to do more of that. During the debate, you may recall, during the last election campaign in April, he had a similar moment in his closing remarks where he was sort of speaking to public service in life and politics. And, I get it. Tiger can't change its stripes, let the candidate be the candidate. But that stuff all seems pretty authentic to me. Obviously, everyone knows him as a political jouster, but he clearly has strong emotional ties to things that matter to a whole heck of a lot of regular people. So I think if he plays that up, he could. It would be helpful, I think, for some of his numbers.
Okay. So for now, Jordan, the leadership question is settled. 87.4%. It's settled for now. So what now? What now for the Conservative Party? What do they do now?
So now the goal is get out, travel across the country, get out and continue to build the coalition that was and maintain that coalition that he was able to get to in the last election, bringing on some of those blue collar workers that were able to flip some of those ridings, even from the NDP to Conservative, not even allowing those votes to bleed to the Liberals. So I think you'll see more of that. Certainly, I think Mr. Poilievre will feel much more emboldened with the United Caucus, putting that leadership question to rest, and so when he goes about it in the House of Commons, I think you'll see a sort of renewed energy there. But certainly, he does still need to get out across the country, starting to recruit candidates who might want to run in a future election. And there's going to be a few by-elections coming up. Certainly, most of those are in very safe Liberal ridings. We'll still have to field candidates there. The party will. But there's the other one coming up in Edmonton in Matt Generous. We'll have to put some effort into that. The party will have to put some effort into that, finding a good candidate there to hold those types of seats. So I think that's going to be some of the work over the next few months. Continue to keep everyone together and really just continuing to prep for whenever the next election might be.
Right. Okay. I mean, Matthew, last week you said they're going to be so happy to have this over. This has consumed so much of their time, getting this across the finish line. Now that they've done that, what do they do now? No rest for the weary, I guess.
No, for sure. And I think it'll be interesting to see where he positions himself and where the party positions itself on some of the issues that still remain top of mind for a lot of folks. Obviously, I think they're in a pretty good spot when it comes to cost of living and things like that. And I know some Conservatives are a little bit dismissive of the concern over our relations with the U.S. and Donald Trump, it being sort of portrayed more as like a liberal boomer issue. And obviously the polls support that assessment to some degree, but I do think he'll have to position himself a bit more strongly on that. I think that was the big missing piece going back to his speech at the convention, where not really some strong footing there. Now that this is all behind them, I think they can be a little more focused on what resonates with a broader segment of the electorate. Everything that he said since the election is always being viewed through the prism of the leadership review. He's talking to the base, he's speaking to dyed-in-the-wool conservative supporters. And I think now with this behind him, it'll be an opportunity to see how some of this stuff lands now that it's not always being talked about through that lens. So I think that'll be something important for them to be looking at moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, if there's a weakness here, it's how do you win back or even win over some of these people who trust the Liberals and trust Mark Carney more with the Trump trade issue? With how do you make progress, inroads with what I would call the elbows up voter? Let's ask our panelists. When we come back, this is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
With our Monday Newsday political panel, the Conservative Convention in Calgary just wrapped up. Big win, big weekend for Pierre Poilievre, big endorsement from the party faithful. We're here with Jordan Paquet from Bluesky Strategy Group and Matthew Dube from Proof Strategies. But one of the challenges, I think, Jordan, for Mr. Poilievre is trying to win over what I call the elbows up voter who just prefer the Liberals right now under Mark Carney. How do you go about making inroads there?
Sure, and some of it is certainly, I hate to say this, but going to be a bit of patience. Sometimes a new government or a new prime minister will have a honeymoon period that lasts for a little bit. Certainly, I think if you look back to 2016, you were seeing similar headlines around the world about Justin Trudeau and how excited he was and how proud Canadians were to see Canada in headlines around the world about their leader. But that doesn't last forever. And if we don't start to actually make progress on some of the issues that he's talking about, some real action, and I agree with what was said before the break about certainly having the support of young people, but it's getting back to this boomer elbows up crowd. So as I was just saying, it's not going to last forever. If people don't actually start seeing action on some of these things, they will get tired of it, and so Conservatives are going to have to do well to continue to advance those things that are felt by all generations. And I think some of those matters of affordability would certainly apply. People have stressed retirement savings accounts. A lot of those are really tied to investments and global investments, especially in the U.S. And that's going to have a big impact. So I think finding ways to communicate that and just taking a bit of patience and waiting for some of the honeymoon period to start to wear off.
Wait for the shine to wear off. Matthew, what do you think about that as a strategy?
Yeah, right now the advantage for the Conservatives and quite frankly for all the opposition parties is the fact that it's been, the Prime Minister, I think, is setting in place the right building blocks, but it hasn't led to any results yet, right? Or certainly nothing that people feel in their day-to-day life. And so I think that's a big advantage, is if you can get in there and start painting a picture of the government failing now almost a year in, and this prime minister being almost a year into his time in office, even before the election, you can get ahead of that before as the government still tries to wait out sort of these economic tides that they're hoping will flow in their favor. So that's definitely true that you need to get in there on that point. And I'd say for the Conservatives more specifically, I would actually take a page. And I don't know if Pierre Poilievre wants to do this, given some of the coldness between the two men, but take a page out of Premier Ford's book, right? Is make it about the plight of the worker. That's clearly those who went to the Conservatives in the last election. You look at some of those NDP ridings we referenced in southwestern Ontario and other places. Those workers are hard hit by these trade tensions. And I think there's a way to marry both narratives. And I think that's what Pierre Poilievre has to do. The big risk for him is that, and I'm saying I think this, but I think from a perception perspective, it's easy to paint Pierre Poilievre as friendly to Trump or somehow tacitly endorsing what he does by being silent. And whether that's fair or not is irrelevant, because politics is very often unfair. And I think that's another big risk that he has is from a values perspective. The less you say, the more people are just going to assume it's because you're okay with it, whether that's true or not.
Okay, let's change gears. Befitting Mr. Harper this week with the portrait unveiling and the anniversary of the 2006 election win by the Conservative Party of Canada. Matthew, as an NDP MP, I mean, you were there for the strong, stable majority government of 2011 from the Conservatives. But what do you remember? What do you like? What lingers with you when you think about Mr. Harper as Prime Minister of this country?
Well, look, I certainly have many differences of opinion, and most of which are public record, because as you said, I had the opportunity to serve as part of the official opposition at that time to said strong, stable majority government, as we heard ad nauseum in the House of Commons. I have so much respect for the man, obviously, as for having served as long as he did, and for his heart being in the right place, even if we disagree on politics. I do think, hindsight's always kind to many political figures. I do think that we maybe understate how divisive a lot of the party's agenda was. There was divided opposition that I think was favorable for the Conservative Party at that time. And I even look at Quebec, right? Being an MP from Quebec at that time, he had very few. I think it was 4 or 5 MPs when they were majority government. And granted, it shows you that you can win without necessarily getting huge numbers in Quebec. But I think it's also funny, hearkening back to Pierre's speech on Friday, talking about, there's the only time there's been division or nationalism in Quebec is when Liberals have been in power. But I remember a lot of Quebecers being pretty upset with the Harper agenda in those days.
Yeah, okay. I'll ask Jordan to weigh in on that, and I'll remind Jordan, if he's going to say nice things about Stephen Harper, that we'll only have a few minutes, okay? We can't do another hour, Jordan, all right? When we come back, this is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Jordan Paquet from Bluesky Strategy Group and Matthew Dube from Proof Strategies, talking politics on a Monday. This week, the Conservatives are celebrating Stephen Harper's time as Prime Minister. 20th anniversary of the 2006 election win. When you think of those days, the Harper years, Jordan, what do you think of?
Sure, no, and I had a good fortune to be there for some of it, to be up here in Ottawa working directly with for the Prime Minister. Had a few big trips to some of the global summits as part of his advance team, and I think one of the things that just sort of marked those days was just that there was a steady hand on the tiller that I think that Canadians could rely on, gotten through some big economic crises and whatnot. In 2011, specifically during the majority days, we didn't. I don't think back then have the same sort of national unity issues that we appear to have now. Matt's right in that we didn't, or that the Conservative government didn't have many seats in Quebec itself. The NDP really sort of took over on that front. But I think you'll notice that the separatist sentiment really went down that time. The NDP was able to kind of knock Bloc Québécois almost at a party status for those years, and certainly in Alberta. I mean, you had a prime minister from Alberta, of course, and pretty much every seat there. So there was really no separatist sentiment rising up then. So I think as a country as a whole, sure, he might have not been the most friendly person that Canadians were just going to, this warm and fuzzy guy, the celebrity type style. But I think most Canadians saw him as that steady hand on the tiller that and the country was really united during those times.
Yeah, politics was different now. It was different then, though. Just the political dynamic, I think, was different. Matt, you mentioned this. Like he did benefit from a divided progressive side of the spectrum, I would say. And certainly the social media climate has changed a lot since Stephen Harper was prime minister. Those would be two things that I would point out. Party politics especially right now in the here and now, Matthew, much more binary now to me. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think you talked about social media, right? I look at, people always ask me as a former MP, where's the evidence that things have gotten worse in terms of polarization? I always point to parliamentary committees. Everyone's looking for a clip now, something they can post online, as opposed to actually doing the stuff that's not always very glorious, but that's important, which is studying legislation, understanding issues better. And so when you're trying to get that 15-second clip and sort of get that partisan dopamine rush of having your supporters rush in and sort of mob the doors, as it were, or the gates, it's perhaps a poor choice of words given events over the last few years, but at any rate, I think it's true. I think there's a harsher partisanship that exists, and I think there's a bit of a race to the bottom in that respect. I don't think I think all parties are guilty of it. Some more obvious than others, perhaps, but it's a troubling trend for sure.
Yeah. It's going to be just strange, but I guess this is what it's like to be, the prime minister. You're in pretty select company there. So at the event, it will be, Prime Minister Stephen Harper alongside former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. So there you go. It's their own special club, I guess. Great to hear from both of you this week. We'll speak soon. All the best. Thanks again.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, bye-bye. Jordan Paquet, Vice President of Bluesky Strategy Group. Matthew Dube, Vice President of Proof Strategies. Talkback is coming up next here on News Radio. Welcome to Talkback. It is 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic is federal politics. Federal politics, our politics, domestic politics, Canadian politics. We want to focus on the political situation in this country. Because when you think about it, a lot has happened in just the last couple of weeks, and we want your take on stuff. And how you see the political landscape right now. For example, in Calgary this weekend, delegates at the Conservative Party's convention decided Pierre Poilievre's their leader, and he should remain the leader of the Conservative Party. And look, he won running away. It wasn't even close. He secured the approval of 87.4% of the delegates. That was even better than what most of the experts on this show were expecting he would get. So Pierre Poilievre isn't going anywhere for now. That's one story that's been in the news. Want to know what you think of it? That a good decision for the Conservatives? What's also been in the news are the reverberations from Prime Minister Mark Carney's speech in Davos at the World Economic Forum, because ever since that speech, the tone from U.S. President Donald Trump and those around him, it seems to have become much more pointed, maybe even hostile. Just one day after that speech, Donald Trump made mention of it in his own speech in Davos. It basically called Mark Carney ungrateful. Donald Trump also went on a rant about Prime Minister Carney doing a deal with China. Said if that goes ahead, Canada could face 100% tariffs on all of our exports to the United States. And Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, accused Mark Carney of virtue signaling during his speech. He was virtue signaling to his globalist friends. And Bessent said Prime Minister Carney's hurting Canada because he is failing to recognize the reality that Canada really does rely on the United States for its economic well-being. So there's a situation with Canada and the United States and how that's going. The Prime Minister has said that he's not going to respond to every post from Donald Trump that's on social media. And then you throw into the mix what happened just last week. In the comments from the NDP Premier of British Columbia, who called some Alberta separatist traitors, said they were committing treason against Canada because they've been having meetings in the United States with people that are close to the Trump administration. They've been asking for help from the United States to make it easier for Alberta to leave Canada. So it's been a heck of a few weeks in Canadian politics, and we love your opinion on some or all of these recent developments. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. Our phone lines are open right now. Here are some questions to kind of get the conversation going today. You know, Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party. He just passed this big test with his own party's supporters, 87% voting in favor of his leadership. But the question really is, bigger picture, can you see him ever becoming Prime Minister of Canada? That's the question for the party now. Could you ever see Pierre Poilievre becoming Prime Minister of Canada, leading a Conservative government? Could you see that happening? Do you think that that's in the cards for him and his party? Less than 2 years ago, that seemed like the most likely outcome of an election, that the Conservative Party was going to win the election and win big, and the Liberals were going to be crushed, and Pierre Poilievre, it was inevitable he was going to be the Prime Minister. But now it's February of 2026, and Mark Carney's the Prime Minister. The Liberals are ahead in all the polls, and a lot of people think it's a whole new ball game. And Canadians just like Mark Carney more than they like Pierre Poilievre. And because of that, the Liberals are going to win the next election. The Conservatives are destined to lose, and Pierre Poilievre will never be the Prime Minister. What do you think? Share your thoughts on that at 1-833-668-2577. And then there's that speech, the Mark Carney Davos speech, still making news. Still making news. But the fact remains, 3/4 of our exports go to the United States. It's a $750 billion trading relationship. Most of the vehicles we build here go there. Most of the oil we produce here go there, goes there. Lumber, agriculture, aerospace, steel, aluminum, all very exposed to the U.S. economy. And the people running the United States right now, Trump and his people, they don't like what they heard from the Prime Minister at Davos because it was seen as a shot at Donald Trump. Some people, even some very influential people in this country, are questioning the wisdom of Mark Carney's speech at Davos, wondering, was that speech a mistake? If it makes it harder to get a trade deal with the United States? I mean, there's no doubt the speech went over well with many people in this country, many people around the world. But the question is, given how important our relationship really is with the United States, was that speech a mistake? What would you say? What would you say? And then there's the whole issue of separatism. And we want to know, how seriously do you think we should be taking these separatist movements? I mean, both of them. In Alberta and in Quebec. Should we take them seriously at all? In Alberta, a recent poll suggested it's give or take 30% of the people in Alberta support the support the idea of an independent Alberta. Dig deeper, ask a few more questions on things like economic issues, and it drops from 30% support down to 15%. In Quebec, the Separatist Party, the Parti Québécois, is on track to win the election in Quebec. Says it wants to hold another referendum, but the majority of people in Quebec said they don't want a referendum and they don't want to leave Canada. It's like 70-30. 70 want to remain in Canada, 30 want to leave. But just given those numbers, do you really think we should be taking these separatist movements seriously? Or is it all just background noise and nothing really to worry about? Offer an opinion on all or some of these topics today. Poilievre's future. Do you really see a day when it's Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre? Carney's speech in Davos, was that a mistake given just how it's going over in the United States? And these separatist movements, do we need to take those seriously or not? 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make you a priority. Let's talk politics for a couple of hours on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Federal politics are our topic today on Talkback. Let's go to Rod up first in Calgary today. Hi, Rod.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm very good, Rod. Good to hear from you today. What's your opinion on the political landscape these days?
Yeah, actually, it's wow, what a mess, actually. But as far as Poilievre becoming Prime Minister of Canada, I think without a revamp of his character or personality, I don't think that'll ever happen. That he will become Prime Minister. And the reason why I say that, which a lot of people will probably disagree with me, but if he has anything positive to say, that would floor me, without being critical and negative toward everybody and everything everybody says or does. So that's why I don't think without a character or personality revamp, I don't think that he would ever become Prime Minister. It would be an embarrassment for Canada.
Okay. There have been a lot of analysts, political pundits and whatnot who have said they're trying to portray a kind of a softer, kinder, more congenial image for Pierre Poilievre these days. And that was actually on display from time to time during his speech in Calgary this weekend. You're not buying it? You don't think it's possible, or?
No, to be honest with you, I don't think it's possible. I think he's too self-absorbed. That's all.
That's all.
It's what's in it for me, and saying what everybody wants to hear. Because if everything in his speech and everything that he always says that he would do, like oh my God, that would restructure Canada as a country and the whole government. Like I don't think. Like getting rid of this, getting rid of that, doing this, doing that. He thinks it can all be done overnight. Maybe he's magical and it can. I don't know, but I just don't believe. I don't believe in that.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. You're not if there's an image makeover underway, you're not buying it, and you don't think he's going to be Prime Minister. And if he was, you would be embarrassed by that. A caller from Calgary says. Brian is also in Calgary today. Hi, Brian.
Hey, good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm very good, Brian. Thank you. Offer an opinion on our political landscape here.
Our political landscape, I agree with your last caller. I think politics has gone way left, way right. I think the parties should start working together, especially against Mr. Trump and all his tariffs and everything else. That's my personal opinion. My next, on your next question, a referendum. I lived through the Quebec referendum, and that's one of the reasons I moved to Alberta when the vote was so close. It creates a lot of issues, a lot of personal friendships lost. I think people really have to sit down and realize what they're actually talking about. You know what? I
guess what I want to get at is whether it's Alberta or whether it's Quebec. I mean, it's about 70-30 right now. It's 70% want to stay in the country, 30% want to leave. When the numbers are like that, is this something that we really need to take seriously and be worried about? What do you think?
I think absolutely we need to worry about this. The more people that keep drinking the Kool-Aid along the way, those numbers will change. Lots of false promises out there. Everybody have more money in their pockets. I'll tell you, I lived through the Quebec referendum, and I got the heck out of there right after. And you know what? I've made a good life for myself in Alberta. I think Alberta is probably one of the strongest provinces in the country.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But after 1995 and the close call, that was enough for you. That
was enough for me. Absolutely.
That was enough for you.
You know what? I was out of there within 2 years, came to Alberta, and like I said, I built a good life for myself, my kids. You know what? Do I want to see Alberta change? No, not at all. I mean, overall, I think we're the backbone of the country, and we should be working together, especially with, once again, with Donald Trump.
Okay. Thank you very much for your call. Just like that, we are off and running. Brian wants to see the political parties, partake in more cooperation. I will say on the GST announcement from the Liberals just before the resumption of Parliament, the enhancement to the GST credit, the one-time payment, the Conservatives say they're going to let that pass. They're not going to hold that up. So there's, the spirit of cooperation to start the new political year. Talking politics today after a busy few weeks in the political year to begin the political year of 2026. Have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Federal politics for Talkback today. Poilievre's future. Do you ever see him becoming prime minister? The Conservative Party faithful certainly do. 87% support at his convention. Carney's speech in Davos. Was that speech a mistake? Just given how it's gone over with Trump and his people in the United States. These separatist movements in Alberta and in Quebec, do we need to take those seriously or not? 1-833-668-2577. All of those stories have been in the news recently. Reza up next. Reza?
Hi, how are you,
Reza.
Rob?
Yeah, very good.
How
good
are you?
for hearing you. Thank you. Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your show. Hey,
Thank you for your call.
Davos, I think Carney's speech in Davos was not really effective. Nobody wants a crash course with Trump, what is happening in the world. I like Carney. I'm not a liberal because I found him pragmatic. That sounds he's an idealist. He's going back to what Trudeau did, lecturing people. Everybody knows who's Trump. If that speech was given after, let's say, we didn't get a deal with Kuzma, made more sense. But that speech was too negative and critical, and I don't think that would help us with anything to get a deal with Americans. So
yeah.
I think
See, this is the minority opinion, I think, that's starting to emerge, Reza, that, well, wait a second, it's great to get these, fawning headlines all over the world and in Canada, and people are, happy and they're proud. But what if it alienates our biggest trading partner at a time we're trying to get a deal with our biggest trading partner?
And it does. People don't need lecturing right now. He sounds intellectual, but we don't need being sound smart. We need to cut the deal. We need to be pragmatic. I had some hope in Carney. To be honest with you, I said I'm not liberal after this. I lost hope. I don't think he's the right prime minister in crisis. We are in a crisis. We need crisis management. We don't need lectures. We are in a rupture. Trump is a bad guy. It's not the same. Well, everybody knows that. You don't need to announce that in that podium. That's a platform for business. It's not a platform lecturing ideology. With Poilievre, I think he's okay. He doesn't come across mature to me. He's a bit angry for prime minister. We need nation building. We have a lot of undecided young voters. I don't think he can ever appeal to them unless he changes the way he communicates with people. It's too negative again. That negativity, I don't think is something Canadians need right now. We need more leadership. I don't like the style. I wish he was better. I'm conservative, but he's not.
Right.
So,
but he's not mature enough.
Thank you.
Too angry, too negative, in your opinion?
Yeah. I pray for him. He comes better, but he's not ready he doesn't come across like a prime minister. He's good in the house, getting up there, yelling and being sharp, but that's not prime ministerial. We need some maturity. Okay. I think that's the reason Carney won the votes, because he came across like a calm, mature, well-rounded person, and got those unvoted people were undecided votes, and he became prime minister. Carney wasn't strategic. He's like Trump.
But you don't see anything that could, just to wrap this up, you don't see anything that's kind of changed in the last little while? You think that The scenario where, people see Prime Minister Carney is more prime ministerial over Poilievre, that's still in place for you, right?
Little bit compared to Poilievre. He's not ideal. I mean, we don't have many choices right now.
Okay, thank you. Be right back. Just getting started on Talkback today, kicking around the big federal political stories that have emerged over the last couple of weeks. This is News Radio. Federal politics, the topic of the day. Let's go to Bill in Kitchener is up next. Hi, Bill.
Yes, Lou.
Yeah, hi, Bill. Good to hear from you today. What's your opinion?
Well, I find it sort of fascinating that the way that the provincial politics doesn't really match the federal politics, and I think that's one of the main problems that Mr. Poilievre has, and that is that he really can't count on those premiers who are progressive conservative. I mean, even look at Rob Ford, but certainly out in Atlantic Canada. They may be happier with Mr. Carney than they would be with the Poilievre administration, and especially with him losing his seat in Ontario and having to run in a very conservative riding in Alberta, it sort of put that whole gravity. In fact, I think the whole 87% was the fact that a lot of the Ontario PCs who might consider themselves to be federal conservatives didn't show up at the convention. And it was dominated by the Westerners. So yeah, he could still do well out west, but I just don't see him winning nationwide because of the divisions amongst the progressive conservatives. It's almost as though on the Liberal side, it seems that the Liberals make peace with the NDP parties, especially when they become the governments in the Western provinces, in an easier way than the UCP and the British Columbia Conservatives and the PCs seem to be able to do on the conservative side.
Right. So I guess your advice, if he was listening to your advice, you would say he's got to try and bridge the divide with people like Doug Ford in Ontario or Premier Houston in Nova Scotia. They were, two people who kind of spoke out and said he didn't really try to make friends with us.
Yeah, that's really true, and of course, as we've seen all over, I'm sure the Prime Minister Carney has the same problem, and that is that the economic needs and policies that benefit Atlantic Canada and Ontario, and certainly Quebec, which is its own situation, are different than those running from Manitoba to British Columbia. And of course, each one of those provinces tends to reflect economic and resource issues in a different way.
So if I said to you, Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre, you don't see that happening for him?
Well, I mean, the polls are showing it. I mean, it's funny that 2,500 convention was full of pro-Poilievre people, I guess. But in terms of just being popular nationwide, it just seems it's just not there for him.
It's just not there for him. Okay.
It's like in the States. I'm an American. It's like Barry Goldwater winning the nomination in '64, but losing the country. It can happen on the other side too. If you have somebody who's it would have happened to Trudeau had he been the candidate last time. It wouldn't matter how much people identified as liberals, they would have voted against Trudeau.
Yeah, sure. So
that's why personality
very
does
interesting.
count for a lot in politics.
Yeah, fair enough. And you're saying people just like the other guy more. Fair enough if it's a popularity contest. 1-833-668-2577. We are talking about Poilievre's future after his big win at the convention in Calgary. Do you ever see him becoming prime minister? It's to the caller's point. It's one thing to be affirmed and feted by a room full of conservatives, but can he translate that into nationwide success in an election? What do you think? There are some who are questioning the wisdom of Mark Carney's speech in Davos, wondering if it was a mistake, just given the reaction from people like Trump and those around him. If you have comments on that, and the separatist movements in Alberta and Quebec, do we need to take those seriously? What do you think? Keep an eye on those. 1-833-668-2577. Nathan is in Guelph, Ontario. Hello, Nathan.
Hey there, Rob. Looking forward to an early spring. How are you doing?
It can't come soon enough. As far as I'm concerned, the sooner the better. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say?
Yeah, let's get started in this smorgasbord you got here for us today. Polyev, I mean, I don't know. Like, why would they bring him back into the fold again? Like, his polling numbers aren't good, and honestly, I don't think he's a very reasonable person. The way he acts, the way he interacts with other political parties, it's kind of a big turnoff, and I think a lot of people feel that, and they really should bring somebody else in to test the waters. I think that that's kind of a similar situation in lots of other provinces where I think a lot of people are stuck into one specific voting pattern because they don't feel they have many other options.
What is it about his style or his tone that is, you say turn off? What is it about it?
I think maybe it would be what some people say is his biggest feature, which is his attack dog nature. And when he's just constantly going at other people and putting them down and not necessarily offering any solutions and just kind of throwing his slogans out there, it doesn't really help to solve the problem. Now, in terms of Carney's speech, I think it was a good speech, but if it doesn't move the needle on politics in the world and other countries don't decide, yeah, let's get together and try and do something about this, which kind of sounds like that's not happening, then I don't think it was helpful in the long run.
All right. Okay. Any comment on the Alberta-Quebec separatist situation? It's been all over the news. Are you worried about it? Is it something we need to take seriously? What do you think?
I think we need to take it seriously. I'm not too worried about it right now because it doesn't sound like polling-wise people are too interested in actually separating. But it kind of just seems political to me more than based on what people think that they're missing out on. Like, I don't know what people would say are the biggest issues facing Alberta today, but a lot of them I would suggest are probably political, right? Because I've heard about the education-related problems. Sorry, not political, but provincial, because they've had the education-related problems. They've had the medical-related problems with the healthcare system out there. And I think, those are provincial problems. A lot of the problems that people are looking at, which are kind of reasons why they want to leave Canada, maybe are more political. Like, they don't like the fact that the Liberal government has been in power for so long, and they would prefer to be with a country that's more conservative themed.
All right. Interesting. I'm not sure if it's entirely accurate, but that's your take. I appreciate it. 1-833-668-2577. That's Nathan in Guelph. Keith in Nova Scotia, hang on the line. Get to you next, and I have a phone line for you as we kick around some of the federal political stories today. 1-833-668-2577. To have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Kicking around the big federal political stories of the last couple of weeks here on Talkback today with your help to Nova Scotia now. Keith is in snowy Nova Scotia. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure, Keith. What's your opinion?
Well, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
First, what is the primary reason that Alberta wants to separate? The primary reason?
I think the primary reason is they feel as though that the government in Ottawa has had an agenda that attacks their most profitable industry, their most important industry, their wealth creation industry, the energy industry.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. I was just going to make a comment about Carney's Dabo speech.
Sure.
I listened to it, and I thought he sounds like a very intelligent man. I thought it was a good speech. I think he got in Donald Trump's head with that speech because, well, start with, there's a whole lot of room in there anyway to start with. And I think Trump, being who he is, his ego is very fragile. And I think it damaged his ego. And Trump's reaction is going to be, well, I'm going to get back at you, because that's all he's ever done. All his life is get revenge and very vindictive. And I guess now the other thing was the Pierre Poilievre. Do I think he'd ever
Become Prime
be
Minister?
Prime Minister? Well, I mean, anything's possible. You know, I don't care for him, to be honest with you. It just, his whole demeanor and the way he speaks, and it's just nobody that I would feel confident in running this country. So no. So that's basically all I had to say.
All right, Keith. Thank you very much for your call and offering your opinion. I guess I would just add to Keith's remarks, is that really what you want to do? Do you want to get into Trump's head or provoke him, just given the importance of the economic relationship? That's what some people are questioning now that they've had some time to think about the speech and, you know, gauge the reaction from members of the Trump administration, because the reaction has not been good. It's been, you know, I said hostile. I would say it's been hostile. Christopher, though, in Halifax. Hi, Christopher.
How you doing, Rob? I love your program, by the way. This is my first I'm a virgin caller. But I love the show, Rob. It's really good. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
I totally 1,000% agree with Keith. You know, Trump, that speech, he stood up for the country. Like Carney's speech, I loved it. And, you know, the guy, Trump is like a bully in the schoolyard when you're in grade primary. Like, he's stupid and dumb, and he's trying to bully everybody. And Carney is a smart cookie. He the way he said it was, you know, we're not gonna, you know, take it anymore. And
but don't we have to work in the world that we live in? If most of the, for example, if most of the automobiles that are made in Ontario go to the United States, do you want to anger the United States? Or most of the Alberta oil goes to the United States, do you want to really anger the person who's running that country, or the lumber, or all the agricultural products? Now he's targeting Bombardier, so that's the aerospace sector. All the steel from places like Hamilton and Sault Ste. Marie, and the aluminum that's so important in Quebec. All of these industries are very exposed to the U.S. So do you really want to, you know, do more to get on their bad side? That's all I'm asking, Christopher.
Well, the thing is, it's definitely a can of worms. I mean, you know, no matter what he's going to say, they're going to make, you know, say something out of this. I mean, the thing is, I'm glad he stood up to him, and, you know, he didn't run away from him with his tail between his legs. And, yeah, he was just, you know, he was being, honest and polite. And the way he gets himself across, I don't think he did anything wrong. But you're right.
He did anything wrong?
You're right.
Okay.
It could have repercussions. You're right, Rob. It could.
Yeah. I think it already has. But thank you for your call and your kind words. And now that you've called once, I hope you'll call back sometime. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On federal politics, Alex is in Waterloo. Thanks for calling, Alex. Hi, Alex.
Good afternoon. Hi.
Good to hear from you.
I'm going to try and tie two things together for you and your listeners. One is whether Polyev is electable, and the other one is the treason comments. Did you watch the CPAC event this weekend?
I watched some of it. I can't say I binged it or anything, but I watched some of the analysis, and I watched Polyeb's speech.
No. This is the news media event. And one of the head of the news media of Canadian media said on stage, he said, I want everyone to know that we have, Mark Carney, we have your back. Me and the 180,000 members of the Canadian media, we have your back the same as you have ours. That's what was said at this media event. All right?
I didn't. Okay.
Well, it won't take much looking up to find that, because that should be talked about across the nation for two reasons. Number one, of course, that makes it very difficult to elect a conservative prime minister, whether it's Polyev or anyone else, obviously, because the media is on the Liberal side, bought and paid for by their own admission. And number two, if you want to talk about treason, the media's job is to inform the citizenry of what is going on, actually going on, so that we can make our decision on who runs the government, who represents us to run the country. If that organization, which according to this speech was all of them, 180,000, are bought and paid for by one party of the country, I
have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea. What group was it that said this? What group? And where are you getting this number, 180,000? There aren't even 180,000 people working in the Canadian media.
Well, that's what he said. Give me 2 seconds here, and I'll put it up for you. Okay, see if you can hear this. Oh, yeah. Play, darn it.
And this was, where did you find this?
It's called CPAC.
CPAC. Okay. Well,
And
CPAC is...
CPAC tried scrubbing this segment from the internet, but here are the receipts. All right. Maybe they've already... But I've listened to it, and it's there. But you look that up, and I would love for you to come back tomorrow and talk about that, because that, to me, is outrageous. And if you want to talk about treason, I'd say that's treasonous, because that's not their job, is to help elect the Liberals. Now, I know why they do it, because the Liberal Party gives them so much money, right? So I understand their concept, but if you can't find that, right, then you can come back on and say Alex from Waterloo is a liar.
It's not that I can't find it. I just have no idea who said it and what group they're part of. So, I mean, I need some context here.
It says, CPAC tried scrubbing this segment from the internet. Here are the receipts, and I just can't get the darn... I'm actually trying to get it to play as we speak.
All right. Okay. Never mind. I'll try some follow-up with my producer to figure out what the heck you're talking about. It's not the first time, of course, I've heard, the media is bought and paid for. Certainly, a lot of the big media corporations, they get assistance from the Canadian government. There's no question about that. Does it skew their reporting? You obviously think everyone's bought and paid for and is in the back pocket of the Liberals. It's not like they're calling me every morning and telling me what to talk about. That's for darn sure. Be right back. This is News Radio. Talking politics today. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. There's been a lot happening. Pierre Poilievre's future as leader of the Conservative Party seems secure after the Calgary convention. 87.4% of delegates to that convention supporting him remaining as Conservative Party leader. That's one thing, but do you ever see him becoming Prime Minister of Canada? What about Carney's speech in Davos? Was that a mistake? Just given how it's gone over in the United States, that's another topic that's in the mix for us today. And the separatist movements in Alberta and Quebec. Do we need to take those seriously or not? What do you think? Are these serious separatist movements in both of those provinces? Something to worry about? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Who do we have up next here on the line? How about Elaine in Calgary? Hi, Elaine. Thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Hi, Rob. Yeah, this is Elaine. Thanks.
Yeah, hi.
Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Elaine. Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to talk about the speech Kanye made at Davos.
Yes.
My honest takeaway is after watching both speeches back to back, one man that was speaking to ordinary Canadians, like Pierre Poilievre, and this is extraordinary. The other one was speaking to global elites. That's the difference. Mark Carney stood on stage. First of all, that speech was pre-written for him. The fancy language and that average person can't even understand, let alone comprehend. Mark Carney stood on stage.
All politicians have speechwriters. All politicians have speechwriters.
Yeah. I know. Rob, I just want to have my say. Mark Carney stood on stage in Davos, surrounded by World Economic Forum crowd. All those globalist elites talking about geopolitics, middle powers, global ruptures, coalitions, and the new world order. It was polished, it was academic. But it's the kind of speech that gets nods, applause and standing, applause stood out for him in rooms that most Canadians would not step in that sort of surrounding. But the difference is Canadians, they're not living in that theory right now. They're living in grocery store where prices change faster than their paychecks. They're living in housing markets that shut the door on an entire generation. They're living in communities where crime feels closer and consequences feel further away. They're living in the quiet anxiety of knowing what's going to be next. And all we are told is be patient. Canada is thriving. Canada, whatever he's saying. His speeches, it's the empty speech. It's nothing. Really, to me, we do not need help in the last. Well, not need help. We need help now. We do not need promises that we depend on global coalition holding together. We do not need another speech about how complicated everything is. We need relief now. We need it soon. Lower costs, more homes, safer streets, a government that gets out of the way instead of layering on more rules where life gets tighter.
All right.
Poilievre understands Canadians. He's acknowledging it. People are tired of being managed. They want to be trusted again. Carney's message might resonate with international audiences worried about global stability. That's fine. But Canada is not a think tank. It's a country. And countries survive when speak plainly to the people who live there, not just the people who fly in all over the world. And I'm sorry to say, he's a political hypocrite. He's dishing out money, borrowing money, giving money to other countries when he should be helping Canadians here. And
all right. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Elaine. I have other callers to get to. You could be a heck of a speechwriter, I think. By the way, the PBO, this is in the news today. The PBO did a kind of a deep dive, a number crunching exercise on this so-called groceries and essentials rebate. $12.4 billion. That's going to cost $12.4 billion. Boop. Yeah, just like that, $12.4 billion. Doug in Stratford, although, $12.4 billion, better in the pockets of Canadians than in the government, I suppose. Doug in Stratford, thanks for calling, Doug. Hi there.
Hi, Rob. I get really tired of people comparing apples to oranges. Your last caller talking about the speeches. Do you think that Pierre Poilievre would have given a speech like that, like he just gave on the world stage? They're two different speeches for two different reasons. And if you want to talk about a political hypocrite, you tell me just how does he stands on the stage and talks about regular Canadians, and we got to make this better for them, more affordable for them. And yet, at every turn in his political career, he has voted against increases for regular Canadians. I don't understand why people listen to this. And I don't ever see him being made a prime minister because he can't seem to get things straight when it comes to talking about regular Canadians. We have no choice but to exist on a world stage. With what Trump is doing to us, we have no choice but to look elsewhere. He can steam and try and hurt us all he wants, and he's going to hurt us. But we have to have a chance. We have to try and do things in a different manner in order to make things better for regular Canadians. And unfortunately, it's become a bit of a football as to how we relate to people out west. And now again on the political thing about separation, I'm sick and tired of hearing treason. These people are unhappy. They've been unhappy since we saw the headline, "Let these Eastern bastards freeze in the dark." And guess who was responsible for that mess? Another Trudeau. It's been going on for generations. People are unhappy, and it's reaching a boiling point. I don't understand or believe that the caller you had a couple of days ago about just before the weekend about the independent study that was done, 45%. You can make any study say exactly what you want. And what do you think that people would have said 15% if it was really 15%? Why would they? Maybe they're not being paid for it, but it's still, you can still make it say whatever you want to say to make people happy. And right now,
what I'm just getting at is, do you think we need to take it seriously? Do you think we need to take that threat seriously?
Most definitely. People
Most
have been
definitely.
unhappy for decades.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your call. 1-833-668-2577. Some passionate opinions today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, it sure is. Talkback. Talking about federal politics today with James in Calgary up next. Hi, James. You're up next, James.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, very good, James. Thank you.
Hey.
What's your opinion?
Well, thanks for having me. I think that our good friend down south, Trump there, he's a negotiator, and he's been gaming us. He's doing what's best for American hegemony, himself, his friends, and if it helps the Americans in the process, they might get a little bit out of it. And I think that good on Carney, because he stood up, he made a call out to the others. He said, hey, this is the way, he actually said what's been going on for a long time. He said, hey, we put the sign in the store. We don't believe the sign. And the truth is, and we've been going along with it for so long, there's always been a double standard. And I think as a Calgarian, as an Albertan, as a Canadian, I think we get bent over the barrel with our trade with the U.S. in a lot of ways. Softwood, the lumber, a lot of things, we don't get a good deal. And Carney made a call out to other countries who aren't getting a good deal and said, hey, maybe we could actually, divided we stand, maybe we could get together and challenge this. And Trump, being the negotiator that he is, if actually a group of countries stood up and said, no, we're not going to take this, here's our unified policy to counter what you're doing, his policy would fail and he would run back to whatever dark corner he came from. The problem is that everybody's standing there and peeing their pants, worried about what kind of bat he's going to wield against them. And so good on Carney for actually standing up. It might backfire. I'm not saying that it might not backfire with what he did. However, I would rather die standing than on my knees. So I've got that Alberta fighting spirit. And, I think all of us should. Nothing is stable. Our economy, our future. We have had a conservative government in Alberta for how many, decades, and they didn't know that oil prices go up and down. And last time that's how the NDP got in.
I'm pretty sure they know they go up and down. I'm pretty sure they're aware.
Well,
of
now
that.
they do.
Yeah.
The first time the NDP got voted in is because of the mismanagement and the incompetence when the oil prices went down. So, does Pierre just to move along? Does Pierre seem prime minister?
Is he ever going to be prime minister? Yeah.
He reminds me of Scheer. He just reminds me of Scheer, but more of a watered down Scheer, where he's attacking, he's angry. I think that Pierre would take the status quo. He would take any deal that Trump would throw at him, and just say, hey, look, we made a deal with the Americans. Look at me, I'm so great. It wouldn't be necessarily a good deal. And I don't think that it'll be just status quo, more bad deals. And I think we just need to stop. And
Gotcha.
sorry, and I'm going to cover the last.
I'm just going to move along. I have to stop here. James, thank you. Thank you for your call. Callio in Calgary as well today. Yeah. Hi, Callio.
Yes, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. What's your opinion?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, first of all, when the question is if Poilievre can be prime minister, so I'm just going to ask whether CBC has done any accountability, why he lost, right? So if they have done that, then they might have the answer, because you're doing this program. So I can say no. The reason is, even if I am a conservative, and I can tell you why, because being a conservative, what is missing in this whole campaign, last time, whatever the nomination process has done, there wasn't any meritocracy. There's no grassroots inclusion in it, no equity, and there's a lot of favoritism, in the party, and that is showing even in the leadership, So bending over policy for USA and apple polishing policy is not going to work, because whatever the Prime Minister Carney has said in Davis, that differentiate between us as a Canadian with the rest of the South. So he differentiate, and that actually helped every Canadian to think about and relate, because everyone is saying, he represented us. So as far as the CPC party is concerned, at the moment, there is a crisis in it, because elitists actually, whatever, whosoever they like, they want him to become party leader. And he does the same thing, down to the grassroots, because he pick up, whatever he likes, and he nominated whatever he likes. There is no politics for common.
You don't think there's been enough accountability, enough soul searching, these sorts of things after the election loss?
Yes,
and that he hasn't learned. He hasn't learned anything. Okay, common criticism. Thank you. Got to run. They're playing the music. They're hauling us both off the stage here. Thank you. Be right back. More of your calls ahead on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
A busy one today, talking federal politics, discussing some of the big political stories that have come our way in recent weeks. Sam is in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Rob.
Hi, Sam. Yeah, what's your opinion?
Hi. So if I'm going to be completely honest, I think that this whole concept of trying to compare who gave the better speech, to determine or using that as a measure to decide who would be the better leader is, it's a little bit like having them stand side by side at a urinal and see who finishes first, if you know what I'm saying. It's kind of a ridiculous a way to determine who's going to be a better leader. So, obviously, Carney gave a very eloquent speech. I mean, it was a good speech. He did a good job. And obviously, he had some help writing it, as all politicians do. But does giving a good speech mean he's doing well by the average Canadian? And, when you listen to Poilievre's speech, and he loves to drone on and on about the working man and the working class, I mean, it's pandering, plain and simple, to me. When you look at who
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
The reason I say that is because when you look at who Poilievre likes to present himself as and who he's fighting for when the cameras are on, it's very different than the kind of people that he's actually known to bump elbows with in, I won't say his private life, but, I guess his private life, his fundraising events when the cameras are off. I mean, we know that he bumps elbows with very wealthy, very powerful.
Yeah, he may do that.
lobbyists.
He may do that, but I mean, there are fundraising limits in Canada anyway. There's only so much any business, any union, any individual is allowed to give to any political campaign. Pretty firm rules.
Yeah, that's
they were
correct.
put in by
That's
Mr.
correct.
Kretchen, and then they were tightened up by Mr. Harper, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's correct. So I'm not saying that Poilievre is, bought and paid for and having his strings pulled like a puppet. But
and where do you think where does Mr. Carney hang out? In the local Legion Hall or the bowling alley? Who's he hanging out with? Who's he bumping elbows with?
No, I'm not trying to provide an apologetic for Mark Carney or paint him as a working class hero, because I definitely don't think he is. But what I know that he doesn't do is, try to present himself in that manner.
Okay.
So
it's about authenticity for you. You think Mr. Carney is more authentic in the Mr. Carney that he portrays?
I have no idea if Carney is authentic.
No?
I mean, he's.
Okay.
It's.
Well, you've seemed to form a pretty strong opinion that Mr. Poilievre is not.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. At a time, Sam. Thank you. He thinks Mr. Poilievre's a fraud. That there's the public persona and then the people he hangs out with privately to advance his political career. Be right back. 1-833-668-2577 after the news on Talkback. Kicking around some political issues, some political stories these days. Poilievre's future, given the performance he delivered at the Conservative Convention in Calgary, ringing endorsement for his continued leadership of that party. But do you ever see him becoming prime minister? The Carney speech in Davos is still making news. Some are questioning whether it was a mistake, given the reaction from Trump and his people in the United States, whether it's alienated the leadership in the United States and separatism in Alberta and Quebec. How seriously you take those movements. Jeff is in Calgary. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for calling. You're up next.
Hi, boss. Thanks for taking my call. Recovering from a third chest surgery, so I've been kind of following this a little closer than usual. I'd love to talk about his Davos speech and a speech just prior to Davos. If you back it up 60 days prior, I think it was 20 global leaders met in France, if I'm not mistaken, and he wasn't invited. And I think he was hopping the pond looking for submarines at the time, and he popped in. He wasn't invited. He popped in, and I think he pledged $2 billion more to Ukraine. And then not long after that, he appointed Freeland to Ukraine. Then the New World Order speech, I truly believe, changed the itinerary in Davos. And they let him say his speech. And then what I'd like to really hammer home is what happened when he got on that plane. Trump showed up, called him out, Canada, by his first name, and kind of called us out on our military in the north. They via a tweet, he said, Arctic security shored up and Greenland is kind of understanding whatever happened there, right? And by the time he landed, I think global leaders deemed him an international meddler. And the reason I say that, the very next day via social media, he was told to stay home from Middle Eastern talks. And then on the third day, you do a deal with China and you're going to get a 100% tariff slapped on you. This week, after giving them $20 billion or whatever we gave Ukraine, I think there's peace meetings going on, and he's pretty much been silenced. He got on that airplane feeling all accomplished, only to land to figure out how irrelevant he was. And I think, it's just my opinion, I think the global leaders don't trust him or consider him an international meddler, right?
Okay. Is that how you feel?
Oh, man, you 100%.
Okay.
Well, you don't go around
because I'm just saying that because I've had political people on this show. I mean, and they have nothing but praise. Most impressive speech I've ever heard from a Canadian Prime Minister. He's a rock 100%. Star.
He probably should have stayed in Davos though and faced the music, right? But somehow he had to get on a plane, and the reason he used was he had to get back for Parliament, right? Something he was in 72 days last year, and I have this funny feeling we're going to see a lot of them around Canada. He isn't welcome too many places now after New World Order.
Well, apparently that's not the plan.
Rapture.
There was and I'm sorry we're going to have to wrap up our conversation there. I wish you the best of health. I will say that, Jeff. The reason I just wanted to bring that angle of our politics up today, just because there's been a few quotes. Lucy Hargreaves, founder of Build Canada, that's a think tank primarily focused on issues relating to the tech sector, had an op-ed in the Toronto Star, a very liberal-friendly newspaper. She called the Carney speech poorly judged. Quote, suggests we are back where Trudeau left us, political leaders scoring anti-American points for partisan gain at the country's enormous detriment. And Goldie Hyder, head of the Business Council of Canada, very bright guy, said, Carney's a really smart guy. And he said when he was in the United Kingdom during Brexit that it's really dangerous for the United Kingdom to separate itself from its number one trading partner, the EU. And yet that is exactly the kind of narrative that came out in Davos. In other words, we should be trying, should we really be trying to move further and further away from our number one trading partner, which in the Canadian context would be the United States? And Goldie Hyder is suggesting with the Davos speech from Mark Carney, he fears that's what's happening. That's why we wanted to bring that up. Keith in Ottawa. Hi, Keith.
How are you? What's
long time no hear.
His official position in Parliament?
His official position in Parliament? He would be the MP from Battle River Crowfoot, the leader of the opposition. Right? Yeah, he's the official opposition leader. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And opposition is derived from oppose. What gets me so angry is everybody says, oh, he's so critical. He's so critical. Do they not understand the Canadian parliamentary system? The opposition leader is supposed to be there as a check on what the governing party is doing. And it just gripes me. There's no end. People say, oh, he's so critical. Well, he's supposed to be critical. That's his position. That's the way I feel on that part. And I just wish people understand the parliamentary system better. Maybe they would see this. And the other thing about Carney's speech there, I like Starmer's. Did you hear Starmer's response to that? People in Britain were asking him what he thought of Carney's speech. He says, well, first of all, he says, I'm a pragmatist. He says, I value our defense, our trade, and our social contacts with the United States. They're very important to us. He said, I am going to pursue more trade with Europe. I just want to keep that going as well. But there's somebody that at least didn't offend, like as the previous callers were saying. I think Carney was trying to make an impression on malcontents or Canadians or whatever. But I know Trump's an idiot. I agree with that. But you still don't embarrass him on the world stage. especially when you're going up with doing a trade conference in a couple of weeks. I think that was just ridiculous. I know everybody said, "Oh, it was a great speech." Any Canadian that says it was a great speech, okay, maybe it was, but they might not think it's such a great speech when they lose their job. So,
all right, Keith. Thank you. Gotcha. And you've made them. Thank you. Be right back with more of your calls, more points to be made on Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On the political landscape in this country, Robert is up next. Robert's in Calgary. Hello, Robert.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Let me just get my. Hey, listen, I'm from Calgary. I'm not a separatist. I think I'm a pretty staunch Canadian. I grew up in Winnipeg. I lived in Calgary for the last 20 years. I got roots in Nova Scotia that date back to the 1600s. And, I am a big fan of Danielle Smith and her Sovereignty Act. I think that Alberta is horribly underrepresented, and probably the whole West, in just the amount of senators we have and parliamentarians. So we're underrepresented. The West is never going to get a fair deal. Both the Liberals and the Conservatives have to pander to their base, which is Quebec and Ontario. So I think that Alberta being underrepresented in Parliament, both in the Senate and in the House of Commons, I think we need to have our Sovereignty Act, which is what Danielle Smith is doing. And, our own pension plan, our own policing, our own taxing. Let's get that in place. Let's see where that leaves us. And then if that, that's either a foundation to move farther away from Canada. Maybe that's just the way we stake our claim to Canada. I never, ever in my whole life thought that I would be in a position where I supported separation of Quebec or Alberta. And yet now, they're distinct societies. We're a sparsely populated, resource-rich, diverse company, a huge country, hardly any people. And, it's just the Brookfield government is just not going to change anything. I can't believe how people can just forget everything that's happened over the last 10 years, all of the scandals, all of the nonsense. We have fallen so far in the world community in the last 10 years under the Liberals and Trudeau, and now the Brookfield government. It's off the charts.
Brookfield
horrible.
government. I haven't heard that one before. It sounds like you're in favor of, I'll throw this old term out, a firewall. You would prefer a firewall around Alberta to shield it from ongoing federal intrusion.
You know what? They just need to stay in their lane. Danielle Smith is exactly right. Stay in your damn lane. Yeah, do your job. Okay. We'll do ours. And what's going to happen? Alberta's going to send oil south, and then they're going to send it west, and they're going to ship it from the States. They're doing it with the potash in Saskatchewan now. It's crazy how we shoot ourselves in the foot. We're not a serious country. The people that do not think that Pierre Poilievre is sincere and that Brookfield Mark Carney, this elitist, globalist billionaire, knows anything about what
he's a
you guys
billionaire,
are up
but I
against.
understand where you're coming from. Okay. Thank you. The Brookfield government. I haven't heard that one before. That's a new one. Warren in Waterloo up next. Hi, Warren.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Very good, Warren. Thank you.
Good. Big fan of the show. First-time caller. This is something I'm pretty passionate about. I think Carney's just been a disaster for us for the past year. I call him the green Trump. He's a green Trump. He cares about his ego, legacy, and securing his investments. He doesn't care about the everyday man, about your he's just here to, secure his future. When he came in, I'd hoped that he'd do something good for us, but he hasn't done anything this year. Only he's passed our conservative policies, carbon tax. And then as far as Poilievre goes, I got involved in the last election. I was able to go as a delegate to Calgary last week, which is really an eye-opener for myself. Poilievre has been the highest earner for the Conservative Party, made $48 million last year, over double the Liberals, but they made $22 million last year. He secured the most votes and seats as a Conservative in the last election, more than Harper when Harper had his majority government.
Well, most since 88. Most since 88.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we let the fox in the hen house with Carney, and hopefully the youth will come out and vote and get rid of this guy. He's dangerous for us.
So you could really see Pierre Poilievre. You really could see Pierre Poilievre becoming prime minister someday, because not a lot of people who have called this show see that happening for him.
Yeah, I heard a lot of more senior sounded people call it in too, that probably don't have to worry about the everyday life like young people. I got 4 kids, and I don't know how any of them are going to own a house. You know what I mean? Like the way I look at it and how I really kind of left the Liberals, because I voted Liberal most of my life, is the past 10 years, how is life better? It isn't. Cars are getting stolen constantly. We have 10 cities everywhere. There's poverty. How many people have food banks? We give GST rebates. We're just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. We're not helping it with any solutions to lower the cost of living. They're increasing these industrial carbon taxes. The Liberals have tried this whole carbon tax scheme for 10 years, and has it lowered the carbon in the world? Has it helped out at all? No, it hasn't.
All right.
We're not doing anything.
Okay, I hear you, Warren. Glad you're paying attention. You're in the minority today, though, if you think Poilievre's going to be prime minister. Not a lot of takers on that one. Not a lot of believers. The prevailing opinion seems to be he can win over a crowd of conservatives. Winning over the country might be a tougher task. Be right back with a few more calls on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Back to Ottawa, we go to talk some politics in the biggest political town of them all. Joyce is on the line. Hi, Joyce.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Joyce. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm with Warren. I agree with him. I think with his speech in Davos, Carney was just greasing the wheels for his future career path. In Harper's book, Right Here, Right Now, he talked about the different kinds of people. And people are either from here or from everywhere. And Carney is from everywhere kind of a man. He has no intention of actually implementing anything he said in his Davos speech, because he sees another high-profile job on the world stage. So the speech, his speech was really for himself,
Oh, really? All right.
That's what I think, because I don't think he'll be around to implement anything. I think he sees himself in another high-profile job somewhere in the world. He's not. His heart isn't here. He's more like a world kind of person.
Mr. Harper, I think in that book that you're referencing, did he not call them something like flyovers? Yes, there are people who live in certain places, and then there are people who fly over all of these places.
Right? Yes. And so I think Carney's that kind of a man. And as for the Alberta separation, well, the Liberals did that. Whenever Quebec wants something, whenever Quebec says jump, the government says how high. When Alberta wants something, they say no. So I don't blame them for wanting to separate. Like, the Liberals created that mess there.
The Liberals created that mess. Well, I mean, that was more or less what we heard from Danielle Smith last weekend, at the convention, right? She basically said, are you really surprised that this is happening after what the previous Liberal government of Justin Trudeau did to Alberta over the last 10 years? Are you really surprised?
Exactly.
Okay.
No,
all right, Joyce.
Yeah.
I've asked our friends in Alberta, Joyce, I'll just wrap up on this. I call it weather equalization. It's going to be 17 degrees in Calgary later this week.
I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, in my opinion, if it's going to be 17 degrees, this is the way Canada works. It's going to be 17 degrees in Calgary. They should have to send 10 or 11 of those degrees east. What do you think?
I agree.
Equalization, weather equalization.
100%.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Bye, Joyce. Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for all of your calls. We actually didn't even get to everyone today. So busy. Brand new topic tomorrow. More of your calls. And always the latest breaking news on News Radio.